Think about a friend you haven't spoken to in a year, maybe 2 years, maybe longer. You know who I'm talking about. You've thought about calling more than once. You've typed a message, deleted it, typed it again, and underneath all of that is something you probably haven't named out loud, a quiet guilt, a low-grade worry that the silence has gone on too long now, that the window has closed, that the friendship isn't really a friendship anymore, just a memory you're both too polite to acknowledge. This is the weight that adult friendships carry in the modern world. Not just loneliness, something more specific than that. The burden of maintenance. The feeling that a real friendship requires constant upkeep, regular check-ins, visible proof of effort, and that every month that passes without contact is a small erosion, a slow drift, a thing quietly dying. Most of us don't question where that feeling comes from. We just carry it. But here's what's worth asking. What if that assumption that a friendship needs to be actively maintained to survive? What if that's not a universal truth? What if it's a cultural belief? One particular way of understanding what connection actually means, because in Japan, there's a word for the bond between two people, not the performance of a bond, the bond itself. It's called Kizuna, and the way the Japanese understand it changes things. The word Kizuna, written with this character, first appeared in a Japanese dictionary in 938 CE. Originally, it referred to a physical rope, the kind used to tether an animal. Over centuries, the meaning shifted. By the 12th century, the epic novel Heike Monogatari used it to describe the love between a parent and child, something invisible, something that holds without effort. In 2011, after the earthquake and tsunami that devastated northeastern Japan, the government chose Kizuna as the word of the year. Not recovery, not grief, not strength. Kizuna, bonds between people. The word that, across 500,000 public votes, best captured what Japan had learned from that disaster. What they'd learned is this. Some connections don't break just because they go quiet. That's not sentimentality. It points to something structural in the way Japanese people understand human relationships. Kizuna isn't a feeling you tend to. It's a fact of the relationship. Once formed, it exists. It doesn't require you to prove it. Now, let's contrast that with how most Westerners understand friendship. Research published in 2012 by communication scholars Jeffrey Hall and Nancy Boehm at the University of Kansas found that mobile contact between friends had created a new kind of social obligation, what they called maintenance expectations, the feeling that friends must respond quickly and regularly or face negative social consequences. Entrapment, they named it, the guilt of not being available, the anxiety of not checking in. Two frameworks, the same human feeling of care, but one requires constant proof of it, and the other assumes it. The concept underneath Kizuna, the thing that makes it structurally possible, is a Japanese psychological framework called Amae. In 1971, Tokyo University psychiatrist Takeo Doi published The Anatomy of Dependence, a book that would be described by Harvard sociologist Ezra Vogel as the first work by a Japanese psychoanalyst to have a genuine impact on Western psychiatric thinking. Doi's central argument was this. In Japanese culture, a fundamental form of love is the ability to depend on someone without asking permission, to presume on their goodwill, to know, without negotiating it, that the other person has you. He called this Amae. The closest English word is reliance, but that's not quite right. Amae isn't reliance in the way a contract is reliance. It's more like the way a child trusts that a parent will be there in the morning. The trust doesn't need to be reestablished every day. It simply is. Doi noticed something during his time studying in the United States in 1950. American friendships didn't quite have this. Western relationships tended to be explicit, negotiated, verbally confirmed. They required what researchers now call emotional labor, the active work of maintaining a relationship's vitality. Japanese relationships anchored in Amae had a different architecture. The bond was assumed. The work was not in maintaining it. The work was in not imposing. That distinction is worth sitting with. Which brings us to a concept that's easy to misread. Meiwaku. Meiwaku means causing unnecessary inconvenience or trouble to another person. In Japan, it's considered one of the most fundamental social concerns. You'll see it in how people behave on trains, speaking quietly, not eating, keeping their movements contained, not intruding on the space of strangers. But Meiwaku extends well beyond public etiquette. In close friendships, the awareness of Meiwaku creates something unexpected, a healthy distance, a respectful restraint. When you're deeply conscious of not burdening someone, you don't call them every week to check in. You don't send anxious messages asking if everything is okay between you. You trust the bond is intact, and you trust that if something were wrong, they'd reach out. The silence isn't indifference, it's consideration. Dr. Yumiko Kauta of the University of Tokyo has written about how the Meiwaku mindset shapes even how elderly Japanese relate to their own families, describing a widespread cultural reluctance to be seen as a burden. What looks from the outside like restraint is, from the inside, an act of care. In friendship, this plays out as a kind of low-maintenance bond that functions precisely because neither person is tracking the frequency of contact. The relationship breathes. It has what the Japanese call ma. Ma, written with this character, is one of the most distinctive ideas in Japanese aesthetics and philosophy. The kanji itself shows a gate, with sunlight or moonlight passing through. Emptiness that contains something. It's usually translated as negative space or interval, but that doesn't quite hold the weight of it. Architect Arata Isozaki described ma as the space of imagination that exists between two things or two moments. In relationships, ma is the silence between conversations that keeps them meaningful. It's the gap that lets two people come back to each other and actually have something to say. When you speak to a friend once a week on schedule, every conversation pulls slightly at the edge of obligation. When you reach out after 6 months because something reminded you of them, that call is real. That's the fruit of ma. You can see this lived out most clearly in the Japanese countryside. In the Satoyama regions, those quiet territories at the edge of mountain and village that have shaped Japanese rural life for centuries, there's a pattern of community that researchers have been documenting for decades. A 2005 study published in the Journal of Epidemiology followed nearly 2,000 elderly residents of a rural Japanese town over 88 months. The researchers from Nagoya University's School of Medicine were looking at what predicted longevity. Among the strongest factors they found was what they called casual friendship. Not close family ties, not formal group membership, just the easy, low-intensity social connection that happens when you live near people you've known for decades. People you might not see for months and then run into at a shrine, or passing on a path between fields and pick up the conversation mid-sentence. Quiet companionship, not high-energy social interaction, not scheduled dinner parties or regular phone calls, just the settled knowing that certain people exist in your orbit and that this is enough. This is the Satayama model of friendship, rooted in slow living, grounded in the assumption that relationships survive stillness. There's a final thread worth following. The Japanese concept of en, written as, which comes from the Buddhist term innen, meaning cause and condition. En carries the sense that some connections are woven into the fabric of events. Not fate in the way Western thought tends to use the word, as something fixed and inevitable. En is softer than that, more like the right conditions aligning. The idea that certain people find each other because the circumstances, seen and unseen, were just right. When you hold friendship through the lens of in, something shifts. You don't worry about maintaining a bond with an old friend because you believe the bond was formed under conditions that were meaningful. The two of you met, something real passed between you, and that remains true regardless of how much time has passed. N doesn't expire. This is why Japanese people can meet a friend they haven't seen in 3 years, and the first 30 seconds feel like picking up a book you left on the nightstand. No apology for the absence, no explaining, just continuation. The American writer Michael Chabon once described this with old friends as the ease of people who have been through something together and don't need to prove it to each other. He wasn't describing a Japanese concept, but he was describing Kizuna. Here's what all of this adds up to. The guilt you feel about not calling enough, not texting enough, not being present enough in the lives of the people you care about. That guilt is not a measurement of how much you love them. It's a measurement of a particular cultural framework you've absorbed, one that says love must be demonstrated through frequency, through response time, through visible, trackable maintenance. The Japanese model offers something quieter and in many ways more generous. It says the bond is already there. It doesn't need to be proven. What it needs is respect, which in practice means not imposing, not demanding, not measuring. Trusting that silence is not absence. Try this. Think of one person you've been carrying guilt about. Someone you love, someone you've drifted from, someone you haven't called. Now ask yourself, do you actually doubt the bond? Or do you just doubt the rule that says the bond requires regular proof? Most of the time, it's the rule, not the bond. The Kizuna mindset doesn't tell you to never reach out. It tells you that when you do, you're not resuming something interrupted. You're continuing something that was never really paused. There's something that sits right next to what we explored today. Something about the physical spaces where bonds like Kizuna form and breathe. Japanese homes are designed with a particular relationship to solitude, one that might surprise you. The next video is about how Japanese homes are designed for loneliness and exactly why they feel so peaceful. If this one stayed with you, I think that one will too. I'll see you there.